Check me out.
Yeah. Hey, podcast listening people, how you doing today? Really, truly appreciate you listening in to this. This is the Mile High Mentors podcast. Welcome. And my name is Connor Doobie. I am your host each and every single episode, bringing you insights, information, stories, resources from the top local entrepreneurs and leaders here in the state of Colorado. And every week, we have an awesome guest for you. I have a really incredible guest for you today. Always just dropping the best golden nuggets. Like I can talk to this guy for hours and hours. Our guest today is my good friend and actually a personal mentor of mine, Crum III of the Conscious Millionaire and the Conscious Millionaire podcast, which, by the way, has over 12 million regular listeners. Crum is a self-made millionaire by the age of 25. He was a self-made millionaire by the age of 25 and has really worked over the years to help empower entrepreneurs from breaking out of the 6 and 7 figure range, from 6 to 7 figure mark, but also doing it in a way that gives back to people and builds a business around a state of consciousness that actually helps and gives back to the world and isn't just selfish and isn't just purely about profit. So really good stuff. I love this guy and you're going to love him too. Before we jump in here, very quick, if you're interested in partnering up, sponsoring the show, or you have guests that you recommend for the show that you want to, share with us, feel free to shoot us an email. However you want to collaborate. We're always looking at ways to partner up with other, organizations here in Colorado. So you can always shoot us an email, milehighmentors@gmail.com. You can also find us on social. Instagram is the page we do use the most, but wherever you find us on social, feel free to just give us a shout there. Shoot us a message. Instagram, Mile High Mentors, @Mile High Mentors. And also, before I forget, please, before you leave the podcast today, do not forget to subscribe for one so you can get notified when future episodes launch. And then also, please make sure you leave a review wherever you're listening. It's really helpful. We appreciate the feedback. We use the feedback to continue to improve this show. And it also helps with our rankings so other people can discover the show. So subscribe, leave a review, and without further ado, please give it up for my friend, personal mentor, and today's guest, Crum III on the Mile High Mentors podcast.
How do you start? Is this starting or do you
same way we did it last time. We've already done one with you before. Let's just dive in. Let's have a conversation. People want to hear you from an authentic
Do you introduce
perspective.
Me? I don't know how
I do. I do an intro before the show. So
when are we going to do that?
We can dive in. No, I'll do the intro post production. Same as you do it. I do the intro.
Oh, no, we do the intro in the show.
In the show?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do especially for you. Guys listening, welcome to Crum III. Conscious Millionaire podcast, and author as well on the show today. Appreciate you coming down. I'm glad we've been trying to get this together for quite a while now.
Well, I know because we live a mile apart, so it's really hard to find a time when we can get together.
If we lived further away, it'd probably be
a lot easier.
Yeah. Any gone to any good live jazz lately?
Well, I love jazz. It's interesting. I just booked this week the Telluride Jazz Festival. And I think I got one of the last camping passes. So I've got a 4-day camping pass inside the festival. I've never done that. And I have a sense I'm into 2 adventures. Now, I've been to the Telluride Jazz Festival because I like jazz. It's one of the best jazz festivals in the country. I've been to the Monterey Jazz Festival, which is legendary, of course. But I've never camped at a festival. And I have a sense...
With a tent?
With a tent. Yeah, I've never done that at a festival. And, I camp all the time, but it's not. It's out in the wilderness. So I'm thinking that's... I may be the only person not stoned. Let's put it that way. That's what I'm thinking.
You're just permanently stoned from being so zen.
No, I did that in my 20s, and I've talked about that. I got a 4.0 in my master's in clinical testing psych because I had a 3-part rule. Don't go to class, don't study, don't take tests, on drugs. But the rest of that 2 years, I was on drugs all the time, right? So, and I thought it was one of the most important chapters of my life. The only thing I regret is I didn't drop acid but once, and it was just that's the only time I ran into it, right?
Wow.
But I think it opened my consciousness, and I think a lot of who I am, and the fact I've been to a Buddhist monastery, have Conscious Millionaire, Conscious World, my nonprofit, that I'm really interested in a world where everybody can win. I think it came out of expanding my mind because I grew up in this very conservative family that was saying, you're here to make a difference in the world. But I don't think the difference they had in mind was necessarily the difference that I have in mind now. Like, how do we become more conscious? How do we
What was their version of that? Because where'd you grow up again?
Well, I grew up in the center of Florida, in a little town,
right,
with 200 or 300 people. Yeah, it's a really good point. They were really good people, always helping people and everything. But I think when you're living in a very tight box that's very religious, like there was. I would say this is the difference, maybe. I'm glad you asked that because I actually never thought about what was the difference between their version of
conscious. Because they were and I understand what you mean. Like my family was religious growing up.
We went to church 3 times a week.
But it's a different type of consciousness and awareness.
It is a different kind of
you and I talk about frequently.
Right. Yeah. I think this is the difference. They, just because of the area they lived in, there was one paradigm. And good meant you fit the paradigm. And the world I live in says everybody can have whatever paradigm they want. About the only version of reality that won't work for me is if somebody's hurting somebody else or abusing somebody else. That's not okay with me. But I'm genuinely okay. You can vote however you want. You can have a religion, not have a religion. You can have your view of what reality is. I'm here to facilitate people being authentic and making their difference in the world, but I'm not here to tell people what that is or what they're supposed to think or what their philosophy is or how they even see reality. I'm just here to help them expand it in a way that's going to facilitate them. And I think
so.
That's
by consciousness, awareness.
Yes,
consciousness meaning awareness.
But it also means a lot more flexibility in what reality people seem to look at life from and what the paradigm is that they're living. It's okay if our paradigms don't match. But I think if you go back to the 60s, there was one paradigm, right? And you had to fit this. Well, I'll just say it because it was the way it was. You had to fit this kind of white Christian, conservative, patriotic. There were just like certain expectations, but it was a box. And if you didn't check all the boxes, something wasn't quite right with you, right? And I think we're living in a very different world today where it's like everybody has their own group of boxes. And I'm good with that. Because my question is, are you living authentically? Are you genuinely getting up in the morning and wanting to make a difference in the world? Are you making your money by actually providing products and services that uplift other people? Or did you just try to manipulate them into buying something they don't even need? In which case, I don't think that's a good way to be making your money.
Now, ironically enough, came from a background, a challenging background growing up, right? Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure.
And how, and also maybe even how you've been able to build positivity out of that experience, that negative experience back then. Hey, Julius, by the way, I can hear the feedback over there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I grew up in this little town, 200-300 people. Nobody had any money. We at times didn't know where food was going to come from, literally. And so by the time I was 5, I realized this was not how I wanted to live. It's interesting. I had this major moment in which I decided to ask myself, well, what's the solution? You know, my parents seem to be smart, but we don't have any money. You know, there's all this stress around whether we even have food. And you know how when you're a little boy, little girl, you build all these fantasies. Now, for me, this wasn't a fantasy, but what I'm saying is that we have an open mind when we're really young about what's possible, because we haven't been told you can't do that yet.
Yeah.
Right? And so here I was, you know, in this little country town, and I said, what's the answer? And then it was like eureka. I said, I know. I'll grow up and be a millionaire. And I meant it.
How old were you?
5. 5.
You were 5 when you had this. Yeah.
And I ran in the house.
See, I had this epiphany when I was 13, was when I had that, I'm going to be rich and wealthy and successful. And
that'll solve the problem.
Yeah.
The problem.
Right.
And so I ran in, I told my parents, and I might as well, told them I was going to be a fireman or something, because to them that had no reality.
It's never too late, JV.
No, it's never too late. So, but the deal was, my mother told me, don't tell anybody, which when I wrote my book, Conscious Millionaire, I had to explain, well, why did she say that? And it was because we lived across the street from the church, and my parents, part of the paradigm they had bought into was that good people are not rich. Good people are poor. They actually believed that. And there was a lot of religious dogma around rich people are bad. Rich people take advantage of people. Rich people sold people stuff they didn't really want. And so
where do you think that derives from? Because is it actually from religious texts, or that's just people justifying their own situation?
I think it's interpretations of religious texts, because I have read the Bible cover to cover. I was pre-seminary at one point, so it's like it's harder for a rich man to, get into heaven than go through the eye of the needle,
right?
And things get interpreted that way, but I also think it's a way to justify situations unconsciously. So they had that belief system going on, and unfortunately I didn't. So I just ignored that. I went and told everybody in town I was going to be a millionaire. Of course, I'm sure they all thought it was a little joke. But for me, I never doubted it once. It's like, yeah, that's the answer. That's what I'm going to do. The interesting part is that I got there at 25, and it only took me 3 months till I had a meltdown day. My beautiful home was on the water, had the Mercedes. And
take a small step back for people.
Sure.
Is how did your life build from that 5 years old to 25 million, millionaire at 25? There's a lot of things that happened between that period of time.
Yeah, I think that there were 2 important moments. One was I went to this little country school where there was it was a red brick schoolhouse. I mean, it's classic, right? It's almost like the Waltons. And there was 1 school marm per class and 1 grade per class, right? And I was bored. I didn't know that was the problem then. Looking back, I was just bored. And so, at noon I'd be finished with my work, and then I had 3 hours to do nothing but cause problems.
Be a troublemaker?
I was the troublemaker. And in the 5th grade, I'm actually proud of this because it takes some work to do this. I got sent to the office 9 times, so that was kind of
in one day?
No, not one day, but the whole,
but the whole year. But
it was kind of like a school record.
Sounds like yeah.
And then
going,
the
sorry.
7th grade, we went into town, which was 20,000 people. And because I didn't have great grades because I was bored all the time, and I came from the country, so this is paradigm. They assumed I was stupid because I came from the country, right? And so they put me in all remedial classes, labeled me as stupid, and that was my 7th grade. And at the end of the 7th grade, that was the first major pivot point. I decided I didn't like the story and I wasn't going to buy into it. So I'll fast forward. I graduated with a 4.0 and was valedictorian. So not the guy you would have predicted at the end of the 7th grade to be valedictorian. But that's an important part of how I became a millionaire, because that was a reference point. You can go from bottom to top, right? And so at 5, I had already said, I'm going to go from bottom to top. And so that gave me a mindset that I could achieve whatever I wanted.
And that other people's perception of you
wasn't going to control my life.
It can't control you in any way.
Right. I wasn't going to buy into other people's stories about me, because I wasn't interested in that. So then the next major pivot was I was just finishing my my first graduate degree, which was in clinical and testing psych, and I was home working on my thesis, and my father's company, which was a trucking line, was basically bankrupt. Mm. I mean, he just hadn't filed.
So he was an entrepreneur.
He was an entrepreneur, but he was never making money. Or he'd make money for 6 months and then he'd lose money the next 6 months.
Right.
And so I agreed that I would come and work with him to see what I could do for 6 months. Now, mind you, I'd never taken a business class. I mean, it's such a perfect stage thing to say, but it's true. I'd never taken a business class.
You didn't did you go to college after high school?
Yeah, I was going to med school, so I went to Wake Forest, and I was supposed to go to med school and then change my. I mean, I did my pre-med. I just decided it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. So I'd never.
I could see you as a doctor.
Yeah.
Now that I think, I didn't even know that before. All this time I've known you, I didn't know you even went to med or were going to.
Yeah, I was going to go to med school, and I basically finished the pre-med, and I said, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And my parents were, of course, not very happy.
Dr. Crum.
Not very
Dr.
happy.
Crum III?
Yeah.
Would you be called Dr. Crum III?
I guess I would, because I'm still the third. My aunt, who was a doctor, my father's sister. At any rate, so what happened was I said, I'll work with you for 6 months. But I had no business background. But it turned out I was a duck to water. I just, from day one, started figuring out how to turn this whole mess around. And I put in systems, and by the end of 6 months, there was only one person there that was there at the beginning of that 6 months. I fired everybody. I hired new people. I put in policies. And
your dad allowed you the control to do all these things?
He just basically let me run the company from day one.
Well, how old were you at this time?
23.
Wow.
But let's face it, he was not exactly doing a good job, because it was like losing massive amounts of money. So I think he figured, I got a smart son, I'm just going to kind of let him fix this. So I had a 6-month commitment, and then I was going to go to law school, because I decided that's what I wanted to do, which I did later do, 3 years later. But at that point, we were starting to make money. Now, I'd been poor all my life. And remember, I'm the guy who has the millionaire dream. And I'm going, running a regional trucking line wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but I seem to be making some money. So why don't we keep figuring this thing out? And so just made it very profitable within 3 years. And, then I was 25. And at that point,
Did you have any interest or passion in that arena at that time? Or?
No, and that's such a good point. I made the money. Then 3 months after I bought the home, I realized that my life was a catastrophe. So it's interesting. I made the little boy dream, but the little boy dream assumed that if you had money, everything else in your life is perfect. And what's great is that happened at age 25. Because if you're listening today...
Was it like literally like you made $999,900 like that day, and you're like, I made it, I'm like, this is it?
Well, no, just buying the home, I mean, it all culminated at the same time.
But you had a million net worth at that. Yeah,
at that point. And so what I realized was that wasn't the answer. And what I think is important in saying that is I think most people who have not had that experience at some level, even perhaps unconscious, are walking around thinking, if I just had $1 million, right? If I was just a millionaire, my life would be perfect. No, I'm here to tell you, if you have a bad relationship right now, it would still be bad. If you don't like yourself, which I didn't, I wasn't like in love with myself at that point in time. I was horrible at relationships. And I realized, you've got this beautiful home, but your life is a mess. And then I went off, to all this personal development, sweat lodges, conferences, all this type of stuff. Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer.
All from this singular
moment. Yeah, that was like 60 seconds.
Really?
That I had this flash.
Completely shifted and you said, I'm doing the wrong thing here.
Well, I realized that I had looked for the wrong answer. That money was part of it. It wasn't like, give away the money. It was like, it's money plus something, and I didn't know what that something was. Now, that it's interesting is that I grew up in a household where that something was totally missing. Because in our household, it was kind of Maslow's hierarchy, stage 1 survival on a financial level.
What does that mean? Maslow's?
So Maslow's hierarchy is 5 hierarchies, and the first level in the hierarchy is just survival. And until you get out of survival, you really don't ask higher level questions. So both of my parents were in how do we pay the bill mode, right? So they weren't asking, nor did they believe that work, and this is partly generational, right? Because my parents both grew up in the Depression. So they didn't think that work was supposed to be meaningful or fulfilling. It was just supposed to be a way to get money so you could pay the bills. And here I'm coming along and all of a sudden asking questions about purpose and meaning, which my father thought was nonsense. He goes, son,
it's in religion, probably. Was
not even that. It was just that purpose and meaning for my father and for most people from that generation had nothing to do with work. Now, you kind of change things, and for millennials, it has everything to do with work, right? It's like, I don't want work that isn't purposeful or meaningful. But so my father didn't understand my desire to find purpose and meaning and work. So he's like going, are you crazy? Look at your house. Look at your Mercedes. We have money. What is this purpose stuff? And I go, but Dad, I'm not fulfilled.
Were you still a practicing religious, person at that point in time?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I had kind of
from the period when you maybe stepped into your dad's business to when you reached that.
No, by the time, I had in college, I had been.
College does that too.
College does that, right?
Yeah.
So, I was actually pre-seminary at one point, and then I questioned everything, and then I went through all of that questioning part, and then I realized that the answers were, for me, bigger. It wasn't that I wasn't asking God questions. I was asking bigger questions that didn't fit into small paradigms. I would say that's how I would look at it. And then later I would end up, when I sold the companies, going and living at a Buddhist monastery, which wasn't even in my mindset at 25. But I became much more open to, especially in the conscious realm, what are different ways to see spirituality, to see the human condition, to see our purpose on the planet. And so small boxes no longer, of any type, were no longer interesting to me.
What led you to go, I mean, you're in California, so that might have been it, but what led you to go down that spiritual journey direction rather than going back to, maybe I lost my religious values from, in my earlier years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think because I'd gone out, you're right. So I'd gone to college, moved beyond the religious background that I had growing up, then went to California and did a graduate degree. So by the time I got to California, I was already in a space of being open and curious to look at life.
What decade was this?
This was the 70s.
In the 70s, yeah.
Yeah,
mid-70s in California.
Yeah, so it was kind of the me generation, and I was going to groups and Gestalt and, dropping acid and doing things like that, which tend to open your mind to different possibilities. So I was already saying, okay, it's not one paradigm. It's many paradigms, and each paradigm gives you a different picture of what's going on here. So all paradigms have some value because they give you different filters to look through. And I would say that I was no longer interested as much in anything that I would call absolute truth, but I was more interested in what is the truth as seen from multiple directions, multiple camera lenses. So it wasn't, and that's why I think, and that is part of what prepared me for what I do now, because I coach business owners either to go from 6 to their first million, or they're in their 7 figures and they want to move towards their 8 figures, but they want to make a positive impact with their life. But I come to it without a lot of judgment about how they want to do that. I'm like going, no, there's not a cookie cutter way to do this. Let's talk about what's important to you. And almost everybody who comes and works with me, we end up redefining their market, redefining their offer, redefining their prices, redefining what this is all about for them. And most importantly, shifting, because I work a lot in mindset and consciousness, shifting their perception of who they are and what's possible for them. And people literally double their business in 6 months.
Right.
Because they're looking at their business and life and possibilities and opportunities.
Totally different mindset.
From a
shift.
totally different mindset.
Yeah.
And the mindset they're looking from is, I get very clear with them right up front. Where are you right now? Where do you want to be in 12 months?
Right. And the only way you're able to pull that out of them is because you've been able to develop that in yourself and like have that open-minded expansion, experience. So you kind of see what the other end of that looks like.
Well, yeah, and I just ask them the questions to find out where they're at. And then what I do is I install through these hypnotic audios that I create that are custom for each client. I shift their mindset so that it's 12 months out. Now, all of a sudden, they're seeing reality. They're seeing their business. They're thinking about their business. They're thinking about customers. They're thinking about their team. They're thinking about opportunities very differently. And because they're thinking about them differently, they're looking for different answers. And they find them. And they find them very quickly.
Now, what answers did you find when you went off to a Buddhist monastery at the age of 25? How long were you?
I was at the Buddhist monastery after I sold the company, so I was 42.
Oh, okay, got it. That was, yeah. So what were your next steps after having that, epiphany, if you can recall back
then? So
then?
the epiphany, I had that. I went to law school, ran the companies.
After you had that epiphany, you went to law school afterwards.
And when I was 28, and this was where I kind of...
Why law school? What was the...
I got interested in... I was finishing my master's in clinical psych. I got accepted to a good PhD program, and I decided I didn't want to go do the PhD. So I started thinking, well, what is it I want to do? Because at that point, I was thinking profession, right? And I said, well, my minor was in religion and philosophy, and I was very good, have a very logical mind. And I actually got it without ever reading this anywhere. I said, I bet law is just basically logic. Turns out that's all it is. And I'll be good at it, and turned out I was great. Like, I went to law school, graduated at the top of the class, and ran a 50-person company simultaneously. I found law school super easy, but I can tell you from having watched people in law school, most of the people who go to law school are going to fall into one of two groups. This is easy because I think this way already, or this is really hard because I don't think this way already, and I'm not really good at thinking this way. And they're at the bottom of the class. I mean, it's really just who thinks in logic paradigms. I mean, that's just the only thing going on.
It still baffles me a little bit. Like, how do you balance law school and your new state of consciousness that you're pursuing out of your epiphany?
Oh, well, so that new state of consciousness was just beginning to evolve. So I had very little personal time, so I didn't have a lot of time to pursue that until I finished law school. Because, I mean, seriously, if you're going to law school full-time and you're running a company full-time, there is not a lot of time left over. I mean, I had zero personal life for 3 years. Zero. Because that was kind of two full-time things.
Would you do it the same again, going back through that?
It's a very interesting question because I'm still struggling with being that person. I still tend to work 7 days a week.
Yeah. I know you. Like, we're texting on the weekends. You're like, I'm not batching out 100 intros today or something like that. I'm like,
I tend to do that.
Crazy.
So I'm actually working now at finding a way to not do that. And I think what I've decided, I'm taking next month. It's not off. I'll still be doing my clients. I'll still be doing sales calls. But I'm camping a lot. I'm going to Telluride to the jazz festival. I got a new journal, so I'm going to journal. I'm asking some important business questions. But I think when I come back, I'm going, okay, what you now need is another person on your team, and they need to be a full-time assistant/marketing person. So I can give off a lot of the things that I'm doing. But the real question, of course, is, am I going to give those off and only replace them with higher level activities? And it's still the same life. So I have a plan. Oh, you don't even know this. Yeah, I have a plan.
Drop the evil plan.
Oh, no.
Wait, your plan for next month?
No, my plan for how to find personal time. Because right now, the only way I find personal time is like today I'm going to an I'm going to an environmental film festival.
Yeah.
Is that I have to go to a concert or something.
Yeah. You seem to do an okay time at it. Like, and you had your heart attack.
But I very seldom take personal time, or I have to plan a camping trip for a day. But it's all, it has to be some kind of a activity. So for 20 years, I know this is a very long time, I've been thinking about wanting a black lab. So my birthday's in November. I'm moving, just like you just moved. So I'm going to take time and travel and then move, but I'm going to get a much bigger place. And I think I'm going to get a black lab for my birthday. I've already named the lab. I've already gone. Now it's Sebastian.
Sebastian.
Yeah. Isn't that a great name?
Yeah. So where are you going to find Sebastian?
I don't know, because I want Sebastian to be 6 months old. So I've talked to a lot of people. I interview people on the street. They just don't know I'm interviewing them. So like I see people with a dog and I stop and I talk to them. Oh, wow, you have a dog. Tell me, what's that like? And then what I've determined is I don't want a puppy. That's what I've determined.
Yeah.
It sounds
at least 6 months old.
Yeah. Sounds like a horrible experience.
It's like having a baby.
Yes,
like,
except
literally.
People have said it's worse.
Yeah.
So I went, no, I don't think that's going to work too well.
Yeah, babies at least wear diapers.
Yeah, let's get Sebastian at 6 months.
And black labs are great dogs, by the way.
Yeah.
That was my very first dog ever. Was a black lab. His name was Bear.
Bear.
First dog I ever remember. My black lab, Bear.
My first dog was Spot.
Spot.
Yeah,
such a dog. That's such a first dog name.
Well, and it's because also I got Spot when I was in the first grade, and when I was in the first grade, they had this primer, and there were I can't remember there was a boy, there was a girl.
If you want to move this out of your face too, by the way, you can always adjust this.
That's cool.
Like. Okay.
The dog was named Spot, so it was the only dog name I knew.
Huh.
And that's how my dog ended up being named Spot. Now the dog did have spots, so it actually made sense.
Yeah.
But so one of the reasons I want to get Sebastian is because it will actually require me on a daily basis to take something called a break, right? Because Sebastian requires that I take some breaks, right? And Sebastian requires that we go out to the park and play ball. So what's interesting is I'm going, yeah, this all makes sense now that I want Sebastian. Now here's what's really interesting. I don't even think of Sebastian as a pet. Not at all. I barely think of Sebastian as a dog. I went, Sebastian's going to be my friend that I go to the park with. So I see Sebastian as a friend. So that's interesting.
I love how you already have this. I can see it. You already have this totally visualized in your brain.
In my mind, when I
already,
said that, we're out playing ball in the park.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Taking little walks in the snow, because that's about what will be happening then.
Yeah. Speaking of visualization, not to get too woo-woo or crazy here, but I think this would be an interesting conversation, is that, like you and I were talking about, like, oh, I need to go find this new space, and I, right about the same time, and I literally, in my mind, pictured the exact location that I had before I even saw it. I literally saw the future of that location. And when I saw it, I was like, this is it. Like, this is literally what I've been picturing in my brain for years of my next evolution of, like, living, inspiring, and, beautiful and all that good stuff, luxury. And I've had that happen a lot in my life, where I will literally see the future. And it's like, I'll see the future, but in a way that it's not always how you see, it's not always like exactly how you visualize it, but it almost always happens. And I've like continued to like see this more and more and more, right? Like I wear a shirt like billionaire in the making. Like that's just already happened for me, because I know with that I can help millions and millions of people with those resources. But where I'm going with this is, similarly to you, I also had a very interesting psychedelic experience at the age of 18, where I experimented with LSD for the very first time. And even to this day, that experience has stuck with me in a way that I've actually, it's opened the gates in another realm. Like, I don't think I was near as self-aware before that experience, and it's always been with me. And also, marijuana has been a part of my life with that as well. And so,
wait a minute. I'm sorry. We're on air.
Yeah.
Are you saying you inhaled?
I did once.
Oh,
twice. Once a day at least. Well, I grew up in Fort Collins. I mean, I grew up in Colorado.
No. Like, I heard in Fort Collins they do inhale. That's what I've heard.
But here's where I'm getting at, is that do you feel that we're in this time where like there's a conscious shift, almost like what was kind of happening in the 70s and the 60s, and it's kind of cycling back again. And we have the ability through technology and all these means to build businesses and profit, but profit in a way that is meaningful and in a way that has purpose. But do you feel like those substances are really important? Again, not to get too woo-woo, but like, do you feel like that is massively important in helping people to build consciousness or awareness? Or what are some of the tools or methods you help your clients to have that consciousness and awareness?
So is the question centering on purpose?
The question is more centering on awareness and consciousness. Because there is something that has, like, I don't think I would be the same person I am today without that one experience. I can literally trace back to that one single experience.
I understand. It's kind of like my 5-year-old experience, which I jokingly say, Buddha had the lotus plant, but I had the kumquat tree.
Right.
I was standing next to the kumquat tree when I had this experience.
Kumquat tree?
Kumquat, yes.
What's a kumquat tree?
Well, kumquats are about an inch long. They're orange, so they're citrus, and they're very tart. Oh, really tart. Really tart. And they probably only grow in the same areas as oranges and grapefruits. But it's not like someone would have a grove of kumquats, because there's not that kind of demand, for a kumquat. But every once in a while, somebody would have a kumquat tree in their yard, or well, in the country we called them yards, and then when we moved to the city, they were all of a sudden lawns. But same stuff, grass that you had to mow. In Florida twice a week, because it grows. Yeah, a lot. So at any rate, but that's a different kind of grass. And so
I don't know what we're talking about.
it's not at all what you're talking about. Yeah. So I think that what I do with clients is I create the space for them to really. We almost always start with, no matter what size their company is, I go, okay, so there are 3 whys that you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. The first one is, why are you choosing this one specific impact you want to make? Now, think of impact as having multiple dimensions to it. So your purpose, which is the difference you want to make, usually informs, if you've put the business together correctly, informs the impact you want to make in your company. So they're aligned. But that impact is actually the solution to someone's problem. But why is it you want to solve that problem when you could take your time and energy and probably choose many other problems you could have chosen to solve? Most of us have a range of interests. It's not just we have one interest. So I think it's very important for an entrepreneur to know specifically, why are they choosing that one problem? Like, I want to solve the problem of how 1 million entrepreneurs get to their first million, but do it on a conscious path of making a positive impact with their business and life, so that they can move on and make the next million, the next million. But the underlying point of it isn't even making the money, even though that's the headline. The real point of it is them making the big wave they want to make with their life. And so
money comes along as a byproduct of
money
that.
is it's an integral part of that, because without making the money, you don't have the resources. And part of it also is uplifting your standard of living. Your family, your children can go to college. You have a retirement. All those things are important, and you alone are responsible for making decisions about that. So Conscious Millionaire integrates them, because the more conscious you are, the more impact you're driven to make.
Yeah.
And if you make that impact correctly with the right business models, because you still have to put it together, then you're going to create a great cash flow or profit coming back to you.
But to build a conscious business, you yourself have to have some sort of conscious awareness.
So it starts with your interest in making a difference. Why do you want to make this difference in building this business?
Yeah.
As opposed to other differences, and as opposed to not even caring about making a difference, which actually is a very bad way to build a business, because I would argue that if you really get it down to it, that a conscious enterprise is one that's really honed on making a positive impact that their clients want to buy. Now that begins to sound like any business, except here, because that's the only way you're ever going to get paid.
Right, because too many people do things that
nobody
they
wants.
Can't profit from, or nobody wants, and if they can't profit and nobody wants it, they can't in turn impact people in the way that they want to impact.
But here's the difference.
Yeah,
is you have to do that, period. But taking the Conscious Millionaire path, you're focused on making an uplifting impact so that that person or that organization is better off, and better off in a way that uplifts. Now, I think that's a really critical aspect of this. Is somebody uplifted and in a more positive state, because then they flow in a wave and create their waves by who they impact, the businesses they build, because they are in a better place than they were before. And that better place may be that they understand themselves more, or that they see possibilities more, or that they're healthier, and therefore they can go out and be more productive and help more people. But it's always about something that uplifts. I mean, I've seen so many different versions of what I call conscious businesses. They're always uplifting people.
Right. Yeah. For me, I had a psychedelic experience that triggered that, or for someone else it could be a meditation or an exercise, or even just the practices that you're talking about, the exercises that you're talking about to create that consciousness. I think a lot of people who'd claim they have a conscious business think they're impacting people, think they're changing people, and in fact they're actually not. And there's a lot of nonprofits out there that go and they dump a bunch of cash into an area or resources into an area, and it doesn't make any change or difference. This is something we've talked about with Ben Higgins, who has his coffee company that gives back to people. It's like, so is there any steps you recommend for people to make sure that like they are throughout the process continuing to impact people? They are actually making people's lives better.
That's a fabulous question. So one of the major themes in my book is what I call the triple win. So I talk about first stage capitalism and second stage capitalism. So first stage capitalism is everything we think of. Think of CNBC, because you watch CNBC and all they care about is how much money a company makes. They don't care if they do good, if they destroy the environment. They never even talk about that kind of stuff. That's first stage capitalism, and it's based on the idea that they're really just 100 pennies in a dollar, which actually it turns out isn't true. And my goal with my business is to get as many of those as I can. So it's very self-focused and very win-lose. And that's the economic models that we have. But where we're moving to, and I think very rapidly, is what I call second stage capitalism. And that to me is built on the triple win of you, others, and society simultaneously winning together. Now, here's what's interesting, is that when you embrace, I have 9 beliefs for each one of those stages of capitalism. When you embrace the 9 beliefs from the second stage, which is founded on triple win, all of a sudden it's like a paradigm shift, and you actually see reality as one that's collaborative. You actually see that if Connor is winning more, by golly, I'm going to win more. And because both of us are winning more, we're going to be living in a society that's winning more.
Yeah.
And everything gets uplifted.
Goes back to that interconnectedness
and
of everything.
Everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
And that's not some kind of a nice philosophy. It's the truth.
Yeah. It's amazing people can go through life and not recognize that is
you and I could choose to compete. Well, I mean, look, we're both podcasters, and here I am on your podcast, so we could choose to compete. I couldn't be on your podcast because I have this other big podcast, and so we would just try to see who could get the most listeners, and that would be the end of that. Or we could say, hey, how could we do a show that would uplift your listeners and give them some perspectives maybe they didn't have at the beginning of the show? And how can we know each other, and how could we maybe exchange guests, and how can we know about events that are happening for podcasters? How could we collaborate? Well, common sense really says we're both better off if we do the second. And so is the rest of the world, because we create all kinds of synergies that wouldn't even have existed in the world.
Right. There's close to 8 billion people on the planet now, and
I know
competition isn't. I've
what's so
given
funny
marketing talks about this.
I go like, wasn't it 5 years ago I was saying we're about to have 7? I mean, it's growing so rapidly.
Yeah. I mean, I give marketing talks on this all the time. Is that competition?
I mean, I wasn't born that long ago, and there were only 100 million people in the whole planet. And no, it's not true, folks. No.
It's like, what?
Connor's going, and we have grown so fast in 30 years. It's unbelievable, from 100 million to almost 8 billion. Wow.
Yeah.
It must be some strong stuff in all that food engineering they're doing.
Yeah, for real. So when are you getting the dog? When's that happening?
I think November.
That's going to have to be after your trip, right? Oh, November for your birthday. That's what you said.
Well,
right?
Yeah, but I have another trip then, because one of the things I'm going to do on this trip is I'm flying to Florida, and 5 of those days I'm going to spend with my aunt, who is 94 years old, still washes her car, still mows her lawn, still cleans her house. Month ago, drove 5 hours one day to judge a rose show, because she's one of the top rose show judges in the Southeast, and judged it. And we had a phone call, and she goes, honey, I think after I judge that Rose show for 8 hours, I'm going to be too tired to drive 5 hours home. I'm just going to wait till the next day. And I go, Aunt Eleanor, I think that's a really good idea. But she was actually thinking of working for 8 hours, judging a Rose show, and then driving 7 hours home, or 5 hours home. So I'm going to see her, but our birthdays are only 9 days apart in November. So I always fly there for her birthday and take her out to dinner for her birthday. And then we'll actually have 2 nights, and then she takes me out at dinner for my birthday. So it's kind of fun. So I asked her when I was there a few months ago, I said, so is there something you haven't done? And she goes, well, I've never been to the Biltmore Estate, which is in Asheville. And I'd really like to go there. And I said, well, why don't I? I looked it up, and she wants to see
what
it.
State?
Asheville, let's see, Asheville, South Carolina, I believe.
Huh.
I looked it up, and it turned out that my birthday is November 1st. I'm just saying that in case you want to contact
anyone listening
want to contact Connor. I have for
no, don't contact me. I'll just put your address down in the show notes.
And I just let you know for several years now, and nobody's taken me up on it yet. So this is your opportunity. You're listening. Maybe this is your purpose in life. I said I'd like a Bentley. That would be a nice birthday present. But I have some stipulations. First of all, you got to pay for it completely. You've got to pay the insurance for 3 years, and get every option they have, because I don't want to be disappointed that the one option I was hoping for, I go, well, I got the Bentley, but I didn't get that special button. Just get them all.
Done. Somebody get this man a Bentley.
Right. And I'm open-minded. Camel interior. But it can be blue
Is that like brown? Camel?
Camel is like the tabletop.
Huh.
Yeah.
Never heard that term, camel. As a color.
They use it in high-end cars.
Oh, I know. Not.
Yeah, other people would call it kind of a
brown,
kind of a tan. Right?
Tan.
Tan. And
I'm not as cultured as you just yet. I haven't gotten my multi-million-dollar home with camel interior,
camel interior, but the exterior can be blue or white, because I like both of them.
Yeah,
a white Bentley with camel interior has a certain classiness to it, right? And I happen to like blue, so either one.
Well, you can manifest the dog and the
Well, I
Bentley
tell you
all at the
what,
same time.
I'll pay for the dog. And then one of your listeners,
someone else gets you a Bentley,
somebody else.
I think that sounds like a fair trade, guys.
Get me the Bentley. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It's like $400,000. So,
yeah.
I mean, just think of it as a nice birthday gift.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, as opposed to saying, "Hey, JV, I got you a birthday gift." I go, "Oh, that's nice," and I see it's a little box or something, right? And or it's shaped like a book, and I'm going, "Oh, how nice! They got me a book, $20. Isn't that sweet?" Or you could say, "Hey, could you come outside? I got you a birthday gift."
See how he's I can see you visualizing this right now.
It's just outside, and there it is. Yeah, but do pay for the insurance and all that. And if you would buy the tag, I actually looked this up.
Tags are expensive
Colorado
for Bentley, like $400, $500, $600 or something like that.
$11,000.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
In Colorado.
For Bentley?
Yes.
Well, that's why you don't see luxury vehicles
that's why you don't
around Colorado.
That's right. Folks, you never see a Rolls in Bentley. Well, because there's no Rolls dealership. There's a Bentley dealership in Denver. That's why people buy Bentleys. But you don't see a lot of Bentleys.
No, maybe in Cherry Creek.
That
or
$11,000 car tag. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know.
So before we wrap up, where do you find all of your activities that you do here? Like, where do you recommend? Because you're always doing something.
This week I was at the Colorado Music Festival at a classical concert. Thursday night I was at another one of these environmental films. Last night I was at the Shakespeare Festival and saw Twelfth Night. Today I'm going to...
I know, but where do you find all... what platform do you use?
So that's a really good question. One... I ask everybody I talk to. Because remember, I interview every person I meet, right? And I go, hey, do you know anything cool going on?
Kind of get good at that as a podcaster
You do.
after a while, right?
It's a very good podcast skill.
Yeah.
So I go and I don't have to know them. I'm talking on the street. I'll stop people and go, hey, you look like you probably do a lot of stuff. Do you know anything cool happening this week? And didn't know, I'm telling you the truth.
Yeah.
And then I do a lot of our friend Google. Google and I are really good friends, so I'll put in like a word.
Good
like I like
Google.
to go to Dazzles. So I want to give a shout out to Dazzles. I go to Dazzles a lot. Fantastic jazz club.
Where did we go again? I can't remember where we got dinner that one time. What was that
You
joint?
you took
I know,
me
and
there.
I can't think of the name of it, but
It was
it's a
great.
newer place. Yeah, and
was
the music
great.
is awesome.
Great.
I haven't gone to Dazzles though. I need to.
So Dazzles is good. So here's the deal. Then I go to the different performances. So like 2 weeks from now, I know it's sad. She's not that well known, but she's an up and comer, Diana Ross. Just keep your head open for. I think
Up and comer.
She's going to be big. Yes, she is.
You think so?
I think so. I saw her 6 years ago, and now she's at Red
You
Rocks.
do have an eye for talent. That's why we hang out.
No. I
get it.
I said this gal, Diana Ross, she's got a unique sound, and she's got all those costumes and dresses. It's so funny. Last night, because I'm going to it, I was watching some YouTube stuff of her 30 years ago, and I'm going, same costume design, right? I'm like going, she does this just big stuff, right? And bright colors that so at any rate, so Diana Ross, so I go and I look at Red Rocks. I knew about the Colorado Music Festival, so I went and researched that. I knew that they have the Shakespeare Festival. It's one of the top 3 in the country, by the way. And so I went and researched, what things were there. I go let's just shout out to everybody. So I go to the C Film Theater. Right? I'm a member there. So I'll go and I'll search through what's coming for 3 or 4 months because they'll have some of their stuff out that long. The Dairy up in Boulder is really cool. That's where I'm going to today. So I'll just go and search for what films.
It's like a venue.
Venue. So I go to a lot of venues and I search what's coming. And then I'll just randomly put people's names in Denver and they're like, oh, they're coming next year. All right. Well, I'll put it in my calendar. In Lyons, I've been to a number of events. There's that big festival ground they have in Lyons, and I'll look for what's coming next year because, this month is the, I think it's called the Blues, their Blues event. It's 3 days.
Have you done Jazz at Jack's at all?
I haven't done Jazz at Jack's.
They get some good bands up there sometimes. And Ophelia's too. It's some incredible live music down there.
So see, so
I know we got to do we were going to do our food day tour and all that good stuff. We still got to.
I think
get
it's
that done
September
here.
now.
Yeah, I know. God, I can't believe how fast the summer's been.
And then
going
I go
by.
to the convention center and I look and see what events are they going to have.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of interested, not now, but 3 to 5 years from now. So I start looking and getting a Class B RV anywhere from 21 to 25 feet. And so I've been looking at tons of vehicles like that. And then they have, I think it's January or February, they have an RV event for 2 or 3 days.
We'll have to start a separate Instagram page for you, JV's Colorado Adventures.
So I'll go to that, and then
travels.
Then because I'm traveling in August, so I'm going down to Santa Fe I'll be there six days, and then I said, well, maybe I'll head over to Telluride, and so I went to Telluride's website. And I saw they were having the Jazz Festival, which I went to. I don't know, 19 years ago. Wow. A long time ago.
They've been doing it that long, huh?
Yeah. And so I said, oh, well, that would be cool. And then they had I imagine I got one of the last ones because it's a month from now. And I just got the tickets this week. They had a camping pass for inside the festival. There's an area where you put up a tent and you have 4 nights in the tent. And, and I think that'll be fun. And we talked about that. So, I'm just constantly looking. I pick up Westward every week, and I thumb through it and I go, what concerts are coming? What looks like it could be interesting? What's on? So I look at, and then I go to the Performance Arts Center and I just, once a month I'll go through their calendar and see, well, what's coming. So I'm constantly, and then I look at all these campgrounds to find places I can go camping.
Just always hunting for the
I'm always
for the good
hunting
stuff.
for stuff.
That's the way to be. I mean, there's so much. People don't realize how much there is out here.
I think Denver, folks, if you're listening to this and you don't live here, I want you to think Denver, don't even come here for vacation. Not fun. But if you already live here, because we actually want more people moving here.
I don't mind the people moving here.
No, it's getting crazy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're one of those, huh?
I don't know if you noticed how much the real estate is plummeting in value because of all the people moving here.
Yeah.
That's what happens. You build up demand, prices plummet. Always.
It's always going to go like this.
Yeah, No.
JV, I got to wrap this sucker up, but in closing, anything last minute you want to share out? Love doing. We could do 5 hours of podcasting, so I'll have to have you come down here again sooner than later before you leave. And then, how can people find you? How can they get in contact with you? And anything you want to share out before?
Absolutely. So I have a podcast, Conscious Millionaire Podcast. We're just over 2,000 episodes. I know. And we start our...
What, in the last month?
In the last month, right? And we start our 6th year, September 16th. That's why I'm taking a break, because in 5 years I've never had a break, not a real break. And so I'm wanting 6 to 8 weeks where I actually don't record. That's why I'm recording like crazy right now to get all my shows for November done. And I work with primarily 6-figure businesses that are, solid, and now you really want to get to that first million, or you've gotten to 7 and you want to add at least $1 million or more revenue. And for you, at the core, it's really about making a positive impact. You want to make money, you want to have wealth, and you want to do it by making the world a better place. For you, it's all intertwined, and it is for me too. If that's who you are, I'd love to you just text me, tell me about your business, and I'm going to give you my cell phone. And, I've been doing this recently, Connor, and nobody abuses it, and I get a lot of texts, and people tell me about their
You've been shouting out your cell phone, huh?
On my cell phone.
No spam, no...
Nope, I haven't. Not at all. So I just trust that, because it's a great way for me to reach people. And my cell is 303. You might recognize that area code, right? 303.
Could be dangerous. You know that, right?
Yeah, it could be. 641-0401. I'll give you that again. 303-641-0401. And now we'll make it dangerous. I've never done this. But since we are in Denver, and by now you should figure out 4 or 5 nights a week I'm at different performances. Or I'm camping. There's not very many free nights for me in a week. If you know something cool that's going on that we haven't talked about, hey, text it to me, because maybe Connor and I'll hang out for a night and go do something cool.
Yeah, come drop by and hang out with you guys. Super important what you're doing. Super grateful for you. Super grateful for your friendship. Thanks for coming down, man. Great to see you. Guys, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a review before you leave today. We'll see you next time.